30.
30 years.
We've been together 34. Yeah. We met in 1987 at work. He walked in and my heart went, choo-doo, choo-doo. Just like that, for real. So there is a such thing as love at first sight. And the rest is history. The history of his life, it has to be shared. People need to know what this man has gone through, the experience, the knowledge that he has, and he can share, and he needs to share. He needs to share more with other people. He shares everything with me.
I had heard about racism and segregation and the KKK and all this silliness in the South, but I was far removed from it in New York until I got on the train and headed south for the first time in my life, and then I began to see that this stuff's real. There was a sign out front that said United States Marine Corps, Montford Point Camp, and then on the bottom of it, they had a little sign in white that said Colored Marines. That was the beginning of my segregated days in the Marine Corps. It was crazy. It was a controlled mayhem. Everybody was screaming and hollering and calling you names, and a lot of physical fitness and physical abuse. People would kick you in the ass. You know, at that time, drill instructors would slap you upside the head and all that sort of thing. Can't do that today. The whole idea was to break you, to make you want to quit and go home. So if you can't handle this, you can't handle anything, you know. So you gotta be better, you gotta be faster, you gotta be tougher. Because this whole thing is an experiment, colored guys in the Marine Corps. So we went through all the training, we spent 2 weeks on the rifle range, and we graduated. In June of 1945, everybody was getting ready for the invasion of Japan. A bunch of us arrived at the same time. We got off the ship, we were on a beach, which was covered with supplies. Ammunition dumps, fuel, food, medical, a lot of activity. So we would haul whatever they told us to haul down there and bring a few Japanese prisoners back to the beach and put them in the prison compound. I think the Japanese were a little taken aback about these funny-looking colored Marine guys guarding them. Yeah, it was in August. They dropped the bombs on Japan. Somebody said something about they dropped bombs in a place called Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We had no idea what that meant. We didn't find out about it for about a week. But the word came out that a couple 100,000 people were killed. You know, one bomb did all that? How could that be? Must be a rumor. We had no facts, no information at all. Nobody ever heard of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In Nagasaki, that's where the second one went off a few days later. I think about 30 or 40,000 people were killed. We couldn't wrap our heads around that many people being killed from one bomb, you know. And in September, we were in Sasebo, Japan, and getting ready to provide humanitarian services to the city of Nagasaki. But the most horrendous thing that I saw were the people. Just terrible in terms of injuries. Kind of unnerving at first, you know. How the hell could one bomb do all that? A lot of bad burn cases. Bodies all over the place. Even after the bomb went off, it was still collecting bodies up. And my job was to keep order. You know, 17-and-a-half-year-old kid with a carbine and a .45 pistol. But the Japanese didn't require anybody to keep them in line. They were very respectful, very kind of beaten, as you can imagine. And we just The military police told us what area in the city to go to, and that's where we went. Let the people line up and get their water. October, we arrived in Tangkou, China. The group that I was with became what they call train guards, mainly because the bandits would hijack the trains, damage the trains and blow them off the track before we got there, and they would steal everything. So our job was to prevent that from happening. On this one particular trip, I was sleeping behind the potato sacks. I heard some noises, popping noises, but I wasn't quite sure what the hell was. I panicked, what the hell? Then the train stopped. But the door on the opposite side came open, and I looked, and there was a staff sergeant. He says, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "I think somebody's shooting at the train." He said, "Well, goddamn it, shoot back." The door closed, and he was gone. So I creeped over to the other side, and I pushed it open a little bit. And I saw all these people running around out there. An old raggedy truck went by with 3 or 4 people in it, and a horse went by, and they were shooting at the train, I was afraid I was gonna get killed in there, The staff sergeant said, "Shoot back." So I stuck my muzzle out, and I pulled the trigger, and I looked, and people were scattering, and then I stuck it out, and I fired some more, and then the train started moving again. And I heard a guy named Somerville on the roof jumping up and down and hollering. I thought he had got hit, He came down. He said, "Damn it, McDowell," he said, "you did it." I says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You didn't see what happened?" I said, "No, what did I do?" He says, "You shot the camel." And the vehicle behind him ran into the camel and turned over, and everybody fell out. They just missed the whole show. When the war was over, they started sending people back to the States. The plan was to send African-American Marines back to the States and kick them out because it was kind of an experimental thing anyway. So when I got back to Montford Point, I still had time to serve because my 2 years wasn't up. And so in 1948, I was a weapons instructor out at the rifle range. I just decided to re-enlist. It was shortly after that 200 or 300 guys ended up down at the base theater at Montford Point. We didn't realize why we were asked to go there. Well, what they wanted to do was to select 50 out of the group to be sent to Camp Helen, California to begin racial integration in the Marine Corps, which shocked us all, So there was a battery of tests you had to take, and it was interviews. It went pretty quick. And over a period of a few days, they selected 50 people, and I happened to have been part of that group. They told us that we want you to go out there and represent African-American Marines, colored Marines, and do a good job, and don't cause any problems, and be a credit to our cause. We felt pretty proud about that, In May or June, I was going to get out. Matter of fact, I did get out for about 3 days. And I said, I'm going to re-enlist again. So I re-enlisted, and as soon as I re-enlisted, the Korean War started. Jesus. I said, the luck of the Irish, huh? In July, we were replaced by civilian guards at Fort Mifflin, and we all got shipped off to Korea. I woke up one morning and went up on deck, and I saw 100 ships out there. I don't know where they came from. And it was shortly after that, the amphibious landing took place in September. Even though racial integration started in '48, it was still very slow. So all the black guys, it seemed, were assigned to what we call grave registration, is what we called it, called mortuary services or something. And the troops were landing in Incheon. Our job was to follow the troops and pick up the dead bodies and bag them and tag them and bag them and bring them back to the beach and back to the ships. And so we were told to come back down to the beach on a certain day at a certain time. We got down to the beach, there were about 30 of us. There were a bunch of white guys there too. And out comes the lieutenant colonel. And he starts talking and hollering at people and explaining what's going on. And then he said, and you people, pointing at us, you know, you're going to be transferred because the infantry troops are running out of bodies. He said, so you're all going to be reassigned to the grunts, you know. We said, wow, this is a first, because up until then, there were no black guys in any infantry regiments in the Marine Corps. We dropped anchor offshore of Wonsan, which is in North Korea. And a couple of days later, we were moving north by truck. We ended up in this area called the Chosen Reservoir. In late October, early November. It was getting pretty cold, you know. We didn't have a lot of cold weather clothing. We had long johns and boots and parkas and stuff, but wasn't good enough. So we moved into this area called Hagaru. One morning, I was laying underneath my sleeping bag, and something didn't feel right. I thought I felt something or heard something. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but it alerted me. I knew where my people were. There's not supposed to be anything near me. And the next thing I know, something fell on me. It scared the shit out of me. But it was a smell, I think, that got me more than anything else. And there was a person, and I said, hey, and the person said something, and I said, oh shit. So the K-bar came out, and I got in a knife fight. You can't shoot in that environment anyhow, because you end up hitting one of your own people. There was a lot of noise and grunts and groans and feelings here and there. My heart was going 100 miles an hour. And when the sun came up, there was a dead body there. It wasn't me. A couple of the guys came running over. What happened? What happened? We heard the noise, you know. It was a Chinese kid. It turned out to be a kid. You know, they have child soldiers. And this guy looked to be about maybe 15 or 16 years old. And he was dead. We got down south and went ashore, rested for a few days. And one day I was coming down the side of the hill, checking my forward observer, checking the wire too, to make sure it wasn't cut. I heard some noise and I thought I had tripped and fell, but I got shot in the ankle. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was moving pretty fast. And when I tried to get up, then I felt the pain and my foot wasn't working. So then I heard my guy shooting and out comes three guys running. And they were dragging me along and while the other guys were firing up on the side of the hill. And I finally got back down where the guns were, you know, and the corpsman came over and he said, we got to get you out of here. And about 3 hours later, I got put on the back of a Jeep and taken down a road for about a mile or so. And a helicopter came and took me out to the hospital ship. So then they transferred me to St. Albans Naval Hospital in St. Albans, New York. And that's where I stayed for a few months. I get to Camp Lejeune, and now it's totally integrated, okay? And I walked over towards the building, and I, like 25 black guys all around the office entrance, you know? So what the hell's going on, you know? And I walked up and I pulled open the door and one kid said, First Sergeant, he said, are you the new First Sergeant? And I said, That's affirmative. And the other guy said, see, man, I told you. And I went inside. And the captain was there. He welcomed me. We sat down, we chatted. This is a problem company. They fail IG inspection. They're a bunch of renegades, you know. And I said, Captain, I said, we'll work it out. We cut a deal. I got the company gunny in there, and we had a come to Jesus meeting. And the officers kind of faded away. And we had a lot of conversation. And I went out and I talked to all the brothers, the black guys, you know, they were in shock because there's been integration. But in that regiment, there was myself and another black first sergeant. That's why they were crowded around the office that day, you know. And I said, that's incredible. I met a lot of guys who were senior to me, and they were African American. But for some reason in that environment, they hadn't seen anybody, you know. Company got squared away as best we could. And then we went on board ship. We went through Panama, the jungle warfare school, and the special operations people, Army special operations people run down there, a place called Fort Sherman. And then I got orders to go to Vietnam. My company at that time was providing local security for an artillery fire base, and I report into my company commander, and everybody's in bunkers, you know, and hunched down and running patrols at night out along the trace that they just put the chemical defoliant called Agent Orange down, you know, to get rid of all the vegetation. So they're just protecting the fire base and running patrols and killing an NVA. As a company first sergeant, you know, normally you stay back. Since my background is infantry, I spent a lot of time going out with the guys on patrol. You know, the other first sergeants or the other rifle companies were telling me, you know, you're setting a bad precedent, you know, because they didn't want to go out there, you know. They're all older guys in their 40s, you know. The NVA would come across the Ben-Hai River and set up rocket batteries and fire into South Vietnam. So the DMZ area was not a demilitarized area. You know, they just used it. So every now and then you had to send people in there and clean them out. So here we go up into the DMZ again. Everything was fine going in. We had a few tanks with us, but they were locked into the road, you know, or trail. That first evening, nothing happened. It was pretty quiet. Second day, all hell broke loose. The aerial observer was flying around and radioed down. He says, you guys better get out of there because they're putting thousands of troops across the river, you know. They're trying to encircle you and cut you off. So we went up into the bush, got rid of one of the 51 caliber machine gun crews that was in a bomb crater up there firing down. The other guy took off. We started moving across the trail into the brush. I heard this one kid holler, wait for me, wait for me. And I turned around and I said, where the hell did he come from? You know, I thought we had everybody, and I made a mistake. You know, I said, come on. Well, the minute they see you giving direction to somebody else, they know you must be some kind of a leader. I'll get him, you know. Apparently, the guy on the 51 that we chased over the hill came back. That's when I got hit in the leg. Kid ran in front of me, and then he fell back on me. And I said, move it, and I pushed him. And he hit the ground. He was decapitated around, went through his neck and blew his head off. That round hit, and it blew out, cauterized all the blood vessels and nerve endings. It was extremely painful. All I remember is spinning around on the ground. But I was aware there was a couple more rounds hitting the ground around me. So my sixth sense was to crawl off further into the into the weeds, but I must have passed out because the next thing I have memory of, it was dark. It was drizzling rain. And this dead kid was still there, you know, and there was nobody around. I said, what the hell? It took me a little bit to figure out what was going on, you know, and my leg was just hanging, flopping back and forth. I said, shit, I'm gonna be laying out here and freaking die and nobody will ever know it, you know. I was about to fire my shotgun across the road because I still had that, I found that. But then I figured, well, maybe he wasn't, I don't know, you know. And then the next thing I know, it was like a herd of elephants were running over top of me. And I said, shh. I just reached up and grabbed whatever I could get my hand on. And it scared the hell out of the person. But the way they were making noise and, you know, you can tell these gotta be Americans, you know. And, but the guy beat me up. He just took the butt of his rifle and beat the shit out of me, you know. And I was trying to talk. I was trying to say, you know, I need help, you know. And the next thing I know, I saw red lights come on and somebody said something. I was not able to understand what they were saying. And the next thing I know, I was being carried in a poncho. I remember looking down, and one of the guys who was carrying me was barefooted, you know. I was thinking, I wonder if these are NBA people, you know. And, but then I heard conversation, these were Americans, you know. And then they put me down. Then I noticed they were carrying the other kid too. And I saw the red lights come on again. And one guy said, hey, I think this is the first sergeant. I said, oh, thank God, you know. I said, yeah, it's me. I'm trying, because my mouth was all jacked up and the guy hit me in the head, you know. I said, I'm First Sergeant McDowell, you know, my mouth was all screwed up. I thought they could understand what I'm saying. But then one guy cut my dog tags open because they're all taped up. And he said, yep, that's him. Well, that was a sigh of relief, you know. And about an hour later, I was in the area where my company was, you know, and they had formed a big perimeter inside in the boondocks there. And maybe a half an hour after that, the NVA found us. The big fight broke out. After that, they just backed away. We had to blow down some trees. Medevac chopper came in. I didn't want any morphine because you can't function with this stuff. The XO was talking with the air controller to get the choppers to come in and take out the dead and the wounded. I helped to assist in that. And even though my leg was hanging off, I was functional. And then I went out, the choppers went away, and then the last one that came in took out some more guys, and I was on the last one out. And went down to an aid station, was there for a couple of hours. Then they took me by helicopter out to the USS Sanctuary. Next thing I know, I was going into surgery, and the doc says, there's something wrong with your eye. He says, you got a fractured collarbone. He says, but we can't save the legs, so that's the way it is. I said, okay, well, get on with it, stop talking so much. He told me I was an ornery son of a bitch, and that's probably why I'm still alive. You know? Next thing I know, I woke up in the ward, in a cast. My leg was gone. And I looked around, I saw people worse off than I am. So I thought I did pretty good. And I was on that ship for about a month and a half. Then I got transferred to Oakland Naval Hospital, Oakland, California. I was in there for 8 months. They did some more surgery on my leg, and I got fitted with a prosthesis. Retired in February of '68. Had a little parade over at Treasure Island. gave me a medal. And went down to the Chiefs Club and everybody bought me a couple of drinks. And I was out. I think that from an African-American point of view, there are a hell of a lot of people in this country that never heard of the Montford Point Marines. And it's not just the Montford Point Marines, it's African-Americans' contribution to the Marine Corps from 1942 till now. There has been tremendous progress in the Marine Corps. A military organization that most people don't know anything about. I mean, they've heard about it, but they don't know anything about it. Because as strange as it might seem, there aren't a hell of a lot of African Americans who have been in the Marine Corps or have a desire to go in the Marine Corps. They usually go in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. I think it's our job to celebrate the legacy and to educate the general public about the Marine Corps and what it is the Marine Corps does and what we do. My plan is to make 100, and I'll figure out what to do after that.
Amen.
Yeah.